It's right here, Ray. It's looking at me.
He's an ugly little spud, isn't he?
I think he can hear you, Ray.
Welcome back to Retro Wednesday at the Tide Hanger. This is Mike, and today I want to talk to you about the Kenner Ghostbusters, Real Ghostbusters, Part 1. So the thing about this is that I'm not going to have an entire collection. I'm not going to show you everything. I usually show an entire toy line. Ghostbusters is way bigger than even I realized, and with that, I'm just going to do Part 1, kind of what I have, and then down the road I'll do a Part 2 because there's a handful of things I plan to pick up between now and then, but I do want to get it out of the way. When I was a kid, I didn't have any of this. I thought it was really lame. When the show came on, I pulled out my pencil collection. I'm going to talk about that. Then I'm going to talk about why I think it's really fun to collect Ghostbusters. Today, as an adult, we're going to talk about this and more on Retro Wednesday. Coming up! The 80s were very competitive back in the day, and I gotta say the Transformers and G.I. Joe dominated for me. I was able to let a few other toy lines like Mask and others slip in there, Bionic 6, but for whatever reason, Ghostbusters took over the slot in my weekly show lineup for G.I. Joe or Transformers, and for that, I boycotted them and pulled out my pencil collection. And I would look at my pencils and say, hey, these look okay, this is a fun one. While this show was on, I still watched the show because there was nothing else to watch, but I didn't play with any of my toys, and I didn't buy any of these, and I did not want them. But looking at them, Kenner did a lot of cool stuff, so we're going to get into looking at that, and I'm going to tell you why I kind of got back into it, which is kind of a strange thing. Anybody who's been collecting Star Wars, Transformers, G.I. Joe for decades and buying people's childhood collections, you end up with some Ghostbusters in there. I did end up with a handful of them, and I also picked a few up loose and incomplete for just a few dollars at toy shows, ones that interested me, but I really wasn't wanting to get into the entire line until this happened with the Retro series from Hasbro. Now, Hasbro has a tendency to put out really good retro stuff, just like they did with this toy line, and you can see this is really how I have most of these ghosts. I don't even have all of the vintage versions. I'm happy with the retro. That's all I really needed when it came to these, but Hasbro only seems to give you the tip, and when it comes to giving you just the tip, you know what that means. It's the tip of the iceberg of each toy line, and then they stop making them, and they don't make any more. I think the coolest thing about the Kenner Ghostbusters, Real Ghostbusters, the coolest thing is the ghosts, and the fact that we only got 4 ghosts. I have 2 represented here because they were easy to get to in storage. But with that, the ghosts are the coolest parts. That's where I spent most of my time trying to track down some of these cool ghosts, and we're going to talk about those in today's Part 1. Alright, so now that the retro got me hooked, getting into the vintage stuff, that's a bigger jump, and yes, I had a few here and there, but a buddy of mine said, hey, I've got my childhood ones that I don't really want. You want to get them for $50? I got 4 of them, and I got some extra parts and pieces and stuff that he's had from his childhood, but they're not in the greatest shape. Some of them are broken, and this, that, and another, but I figured it was still a pretty good value. The thing about this toy line is pretty darn cheap to collect these, and with that, there are some differences that I've noticed that is even with his collection. Well, I think all of these actually have the first run backpacks, so where it comes out of the center instead of out of the bottom. Thought I actually had one that came out of the bottom. Well, I prefer them coming out of the center because in my mind, that is the way it should be. And so with that, getting the 4 main ones, we're going to get a little into the recolors and repaints down the road, but not too deep because I don't have all of them, but that really wears thin, if you know what I mean. Okay, so I want to start off with talking about the monsters. I think the monsters are really cool. This is one of the better lines that they made. They just call them monster. We're going to start with the mummy monster. And so with this one here, it's kind of cool what you can do. And you have a mummy looking like a really good mummy, and you squeeze his legs because it's big on the action features. And he kind of loses his head and his arm. And they're connected by these straps, so it looks like the mummy wrappings are kind of holding it together. But that's really awesome because a lot of mummies are still complete to this day because of that. Now, there's still some out there missing them that people really went to town and ripped them off and all that kind of stuff. But for the most part, most of these are still pretty complete and look pretty good in pretty good shape. It'd be kind of fun. I wouldn't mind having a few of the mummies, but still pretty cool overall. Now, next up for this mummy, this monster, the Frankenstein monster. And it's pretty simple. He looks really good. He's got the Frankenstein look, Frankenstein vibe. He is quite tall also. I like that. Nice looking dude overall, and great suit. And he does one thing. He squeezes his legs together, he does that. And it's pretty simple, but it's fun and satisfying at the same time. Now, what does suck, though, is that you really can't... I guess you could wed something in there, but you can't really pose him in his action feature. You could pose him with his stuff falling off, but... well, none of them really can be posed in their action feature. Next, we have the Dracula monster. Now, the Dracula monster looks pretty cool, too. Getting his cape is one of the challenging parts for this figure, but getting it in good shape, too. I figured I could, like, swap out maybe a Batman cape, because it looks kind of like a Batman cape, but not really. He does have this plastic piece that goes in the cape that kind of connects to hold the cape on, which I just disconnected somehow. And when you squeeze his arms, he opens his mouth and he goes, "Bro, I want to, you know what, not get demonetized." Anyway, let's go ahead and put that right there. I like the purple on him. I think he looks cool. A lot of fun. Next, we get into the werewolf, which it literally does the exact same thing as Dracula, but werewolf looks really cool. Werewolf of London, or wherever, but there he is for the back. So, looks like a typical werewolf. Fun and cheap. And all these, I got most of these for under $10 each. Dracula's a little more expensive because of the cape, but yeah, that's what he does. It's pretty cool. House of the Moon. Well, actually, what Kenner put in the bio is that what he's really doing when he's doing this is saying that he loves the 2006 Ghostbusters movie. Aww. Wait, 2016? Yeah, what year did that one come out? Yeah, 2016. Okay, so then we got Quasimodo. Is that what they actually call this guy? Quasimodo. 3 cheers for Quasimodo, which is really cool. It's a hunchback of Notre Dame looking kind of dude over here, and that's kind of fun. And then what you do is you squeeze his legs and he breaks out of his chains. Break these chains. That's what he does. That's it. Kind of cool. Interesting, cool looking group. I do not have, and I thought I had it, don't have the zombie. So, not a big deal. I'm sure I'll pick it up at a toy show for under $10, probably this weekend. Next up, we have the Haunted Human series, which I think is a whole lot of fun. And so with that, I'm going to show each one of these, but I do want to bring in some doubles as we do it to make it a little bit easier, a little bit faster. First of all, we got Mail Fraud. So this is kind of before and after. These are Transformers. Yes. Oh, Ghostbusters. Oh, yeah. So this one's real easy. You just kind of lift up on this and you get the tie flip out and all that kind of stuff. And you can have a chomping motion and all that. But I think it looks kind of cool to see kind of the before and after of what's going on. And I think on a display shelf, this is a fun way to display. You have a before and an after display. And for that, I like seeing this. And I don't mind having doubles with that, especially when you get them cheap, like $6, $7, $8 or something like that. Next up, we have Granny Gross, which is kind of an interesting looking figure. Like, looking at it like this looks boring. Looking at it like this, displaying it like that looks really cool. So a couple things that she does is you can make her teeth move, and then when you pull this up and down, this is her transformation, like that. But then you can wiggle that tongue, get in there with that tongue, and yeah, Granny Gross. She can be a lot of fun. Next up, we got Tombstone Tackle, which looks like just a big old bulky football player. Whole lot of fun. He's out there playing his football, and then he bends over, down, set, hey, scare. Down, set, scare. Is that what goes on here? So with that, you can have these eyes that pop up in here, and then this tongue moving around with a football on it, and so a haunted football player. I was actually a little surprised that literally that's all it did, unless I'm missing something. That's all it does. So he's not really the best one, but he's pretty cheap and easy to get. So there you go. Tombstone Tackle. Next up, we have Wicked Willie performing his transformation here. And so this is kind of the before and the after. This was one of the ones that, this one interested me a lot because it's kind of two different figures. He's on a scooter, and the scooter looks really good, actually. And then turns into this crazy mechanism where you just literally fold out a few things. It's not a hard transformation at all. And then this really, his face just comes down, and that seems to be all that it really does. But it is still really cool. It's one that I never even knew this existed till I was looking into this line. I was like, oh, I gotta have one of these, or two. Lots of fun, and looks pretty cool. Next up we have X-Cop, and he puts his hands in the air like he's a true player. I'm having trouble getting this guy to stand up. I usually lean him up against the display, so it's not a problem. So anyway, he looks pretty cool. So he just looks like a standard cop, and actually looks like something you'd find out of Terminator, Terminator 2, and something like that with those Terminator 2 toys, which keep popping up in all these different lots. It's a lot of fun. Still, this dude here pops up, and kind of like Extendar, where his legs and arms extend, and then this face pops down, and then you can just kind of move around. His tongue moves around a little bit, so kind of cool, kind of interesting. You see a skeleton in there. That's X-Cop. Next up we have Terror Trash Ghost, and Terror Trash Ghost is interesting because he looks like a normal trash man, just doing his job. Well, you know, technically, trash man or garbage sanitation engineers. There we go. Sanitation engineers no longer pick up trash cans and throw them in the trash. It's all hydraulics lifting up your cart nowadays. So this guy is outdated. This shows a sign of simpler times, or maybe they were more complex in the sanitation engineer department. But looking at it, he turns into this. So this is crazy. It's like a little bug flying around and all that kind of stuff. Interesting figure, but the thing about it is, to call him a figure, a lot of these have just fused legs, and I don't like that. When the main toy line didn't have that, it's a downside to a lot of these, but it's still kind of a cool feature and an interesting display. Next up we got Hard Hat Horror, which I don't have a second one of because he's actually a little hard to get. Well, not really hard. I mean, you can probably get one for $10, but getting him with his hammer is the hard part. So I don't know. You push this down, and that happens, right? His head comes out, and he's got this crazy looking tongue going on right there. And then you pull this down on his feet, like the bottom of his feet, pull his soles off, and out come his crazy wings, and he turns into a crazy looking, looks sort of like a bat took him over and all that. And then you can move these in and out, so maybe like that to flap the wings. Kind of cool, really. It actually really is kind of cool look for this guy. So I think the one that's got the most play value by far is Air Sickness. Now, this dude here is just a figure. Okay, he's just a figure. He's an action figure. He has his 4 or you could maybe 5 points of articulation going on right here, and interesting. He's got a hole in his back for a backpack and that kind of stuff. And then we have this airplane over here that he can fly around in. It has some wings that you could have some wings come out like this. Now for some transformation, his car, and I don't really know how you're supposed to do this without messing up it's supposed to transform into this kind of mouth. The wings can pop off, and you see eyes. He can put the wings on his back if that's what you want. He can have his wings on his back, and that's something that you can do, or flip it around like that. Something that you can do. That's kind of cool. It's kind of fun. With this, you pop his head up, and it's like, oh wow, now I'm getting possessed and taken over. And then this can spin around. So there's a lot of interesting stuff. There's just play value after play value. Plus this can be its own, it's got a face on it, so it could be its own bat if it doesn't want to be connected to the back of anything. And then this has a propeller on it, so it could fly around and do whatever. Or it could have been a propeller when it was just part of a vehicle. But then you can pop the propeller off, and you can put the propeller on this dude, and then he can fly around with it. So there's so many things that you could do and so many options, which is kind of fun and kind of, it's Kenner, kind of a little bit of a Centurion vibe going on right there. But Air Sickness, probably the most fun. Okay, here are some oddballs. These are some mini goopers, which they're clear, transparent. I think you are supposed to, the heads turn around. I think you can pop off, like this one here, you can pop off that. I don't know if you're supposed to, but you can, or you just move the head around. So they're just ghosts that are clear and look goofy, and I don't know. There's something else they're supposed to do with those, but I don't know. The mini traps make a lot more sense. They have some action feature to them. You can open this trap up, and then you can see, hey, this 2016 Ghostbusters walking by, and whoa, got her. And same thing with here. Oh, got her. So we got some random figures in here. So we've got the original Slimer, and it's the original OG Slimer who came with, well, he was called Green Ghost, and he doesn't have much going on with him. He's got some articulation in this tail and articulation in the arms, and he flies around with this big old mouth, and he eats stuff. So because he likes to eat stuff, he comes with meat, watermelon, and a pizza. I'm missing the pizza. I have that in the retro version, so no big deal there. They do look different, like different colorations in the retro version, but there is good old Slimer. This is another Slimer that has some sort of a helicopter backpack he's supposed to go with him. I just have him. I don't really need his helicopter. I just think Slimer's cool. I don't really need all of that, but it was a thing that came with it. And then we have this guy here, the Bug-Eye Ghost. This is an original Kenner, not a reproduction, so it's old and it's hard, and it's supposed to have, you're supposed to be able to pop the eye by squeezing it, I believe, and it's older and harder, and when it gets old and hard, it doesn't pop like it should, so there it is. And then this one, oddly enough, I showed at the beginning the reproduction one. I thought this was Kenner's, and then I was like, oh, wait a second, this is Playmobil. It's like a statue with just movable arms, but they look almost exactly the same, and I just really don't care. So next up, we've got Full Speed Ahead. Is that what it is? It's Pool Speed Ahead and Fearsome Flush. We're going to move the Fearsome Flushes out of the way. I have some stuff to say about that. This is the Pool Speed Ahead. Now, the thing about this is, this figure, he's one that you just pull string and it goes fast. I'm going to tell you something, and this is a hack for any vintage 80s toy hack. And this is a simple hack. To get this figure, you could probably get him for $5 shipped. I'm not joking, he's that cheap. But if you get him with his pull cord, the original pull cord unbroken, he's over $30. Now, you know where you can get a cheap pull cord? It's like Orco pull cords are like a dime a dozen. So you can get 12 of these for 10 cents shipped. Now, I'm just kidding. I don't really know. But I have like 5 of these, and I literally use an Orco pull string in anything that I am missing the pull. Well, it's not a pull string, but anything I'm missing the pull on, I use Orcos. And it usually works. And he'll take off rolling. I didn't want it to go launch across the room, but you get the point. Hey, thanks for the loan, Orco. Okay, Fearsome Flush. This is a figure that Hasbro did remake in their line, which I don't know why they picked this. Out of all these ghosts we're looking at, they picked this one. And it's not bad, but it's just, this is all it really does. Maybe it was cheap. Maybe they still had, well, no, they didn't have the mold because they're different molds, but this is all it does. So this is Kenner's, and this is Hasbro's, and they look very, very similar, and I actually say Hasbro's is actually better. Now, this thing's used and worn out, but Hasbro has rubber wheels. This does not have rubber wheels, and so this one, Hasbro's grips better, and you can see the mechanisms. They sort of covered up the mechanism, or I'm missing a part, something like that. But Fearsome Flush, not much to it, but still kind of fun. It's kind of fun, and you can make a figure sit on it, I bet. It's all about trying new things, you know, and there we go. Now, obviously, these two would not be in the same restroom together, but there we go. They would try new things. Now he's falling. So we have Bad to the Bone, and another one where if he's missing one part, then he's like $5. And if he's got his other arm on him, then he's 30 or some stupid nonsense. So anyway, he does have one party trick where he has an opening chest, and he can grab someone. Crazy, right? And then his eyes bug out. Now, I'm thinking there's got to be a better way than just moving his jaw. There's got to be something else you can do, but that's how it works. And there he goes. Pretty interesting, kind of fun, and just kind of creepy to have mixed into your ghosts. And now we're going to quickly touch on these repaints and just revariants and stuff of the main cast, which I'm not a fan of, but actually I was a fan of. This is kind of what sucked me in. Let's get into this. So over here is a super Fright feature, Super Fright feature, and then we'll get the regular Fright feature. I only have one of these. I don't have any of his ghost or anything, but this lever on the back, Winston turns into a scared dude. And this feels like something you'd see in the cartoon, like, whoa, what's that? Whoa, I'm scared. That is cool. I like this stuff. Guess what? Most people don't. I don't like just standard straight up recolors and then packing them with some different accessories or something. But when they actually do something that makes sense, then that's pretty cool. So here we go with Ray, and his goggles go up and then his ears pop out, and that is so cool. That's a lot of fun. It's way more fun. And then you don't really lose the articulation in this arm either. So that's another cool thing. Like, you have the same articulation. It's like you have a good Ray figure. And is it Ray? Ray stands? Yeah. You get a good Ray figure and you have an extra feature. So that's really good. And then we have this one here. So this is the first one that got me realizing that there's some cool stuff going on with this line. And at a convention, I got this one for $3. And I saw that it did this, and I was just picked it up and looked at it. I was like, there's something about this. This is different than what I remember. And it's like, woo, woo, ga, woo, ga. So this is, he's not scared of a ghost. This is what he does when he sees a pretty woman walking down the road. Whoa, check that out. So getting over here to Egon, and he has this tie that flips up. He's like, whoa. This is another one I got. I think I got this one. I think I got 5 of them that day for like $3 each. I talked him into like, hey, how about 10 for all of it or something? I mean, it was a really good deal. So back in the day, that's how 2012 toy shows were. None of her stuff really works. So Janine, and I understand getting her parts is expensive and stuff. So she's one that's a little harder to get. But if you pull down her mouth, you can see her eyes pop out and her hair pops up. So eyes pop out, mouth opens, hair pops up. So I don't know what, this arm is all jacked up. So anyway, kind of cool stuff. One of the better parts of Kenner Ghostbusters. Except I've got a few of the Power Pack heroes, which this is the only Power Pack I have. I've had this Power Pack forever, and I actually think I might have more of them mixed in. I've got like 15 or 20 parts bags of stuff I just don't know what it goes to. So I'm like, oh, I got to go through them and see if some of the stuff's in there. Takes an entire day, but maybe I have another 1 or 2 backpacks or something. But this kind of stuff's kind of cool. This is kind of fun, but really, this is where we get into the repaints that I don't like. Although it looks cool, it gets annoying, and I really, truthfully, don't need that backpack or any of these other backpacks unless you're hardcore. You want to be completist to this toy line, but it doesn't really add the value to it. It was just trying to come up with a gimmick to make yet another series of figures, and I'm not gonna slight them for it, because if you don't have the main characters on the shelf, none of those ghosts would have sold. So this is the Screaming Heroes line. Again, another line I don't have hardly any of, but I forgot this is a Fright feature. Winston, I had him in with Screaming Heroes. How am I supposed to know the difference? Still. So they do a couple of things. This one here, it's just gimmicky, and then you push this button in the back. Now they're supposed to have some sort of ghost that you clip onto them or something along those lines, which I don't have. And again, I don't really need, which I think is cool that you don't have to have the ghost to get it to do whatever it does, because they give you a little button to press, but you spin this around and I don't really know if she's supposed to twist or something. So it's a strange series of toys that they made, and I'm not exactly sure what they were going for, and maybe there's some enthusiasts out there that can explain it a little better than I can. But I was like, I ended up with them, and I didn't really pay anything. It's not like I went out of my way to buy any of these. They were just, cheap ones I picked up. But I'm like, well, what do they classify as, and why do I need yet a 5th Egon? And he does that. So something that was different, and again, they have to have something on the shelf to further the next wave. 2 more Egons, just simply because I just ended up with them. So, want to point out that the glow-in-the-dark ones, the ECTO Glow figures have just ballooned in price. I actually paid $3 from him. I got them from the same guy I got the Fright feature ones from. But this isn't his correct backpack, but this is his ghost. It's a reused ghost. That ghost has got like 5 different colors, I think. But I don't know what this one comes from. So the thing is that I would have gotten the whole line of these, but I never came across them in person, and I just never chased them down online. I never even thought to buy Ghostbuster figures on eBay back in the day, and so I only picked them up at shows when I saw them for cheap. And so with that, glow in the dark is really cool. I always have trouble getting the glow in the dark stuff to show up on my camera, so I leave a little ambient light there, but he is still glowing a bit. Not as good as I'd like, actually. Alright, now for the vehicles, then for the Firehouse playset and the big finale. So, this is ECTO 2, I believe. I think that's what they call this, ECTO 2. And with it, it's kind of cool, and lucky for me, I just ended up getting one for like next to nothing. They're not very expensive, and it's funny because I had just a pile of parts, and everything it was missing, I had parts to it. So, let's go at what it does. You pull this trigger, and it spins the blades. I guess this is a lock to where it won't spin the blades. I don't know why you would engineer that in. It doesn't make any sense to me. And so with that, when you push this in, well, pull this out and you can push down this grapple, and then when you can spin the helicopter and it's fine. You push this in, it engages the grapple, and it starts to pull it up. And I'm wondering if you push this in and nothing happens. So then you can pull this back out and still it'll spin like normal. So it's a bit of a tricky mechanism, but it works. It gets the job done. And I didn't really understand what it did at first, and I guess I should have watched some videos about it, but I figured it out after a few minutes of fiddling with it before I broke anything on it. And it does have some wheels so it can roll. It does have this bomb, and I was like, oh, where's the button to drop the bomb? And so while he's flying over here, he can... Oh, okay. Here is the Winston I was looking for. He has that screaming Winston. Anyway, he has no accessories with him. And I thought that this would drop, but it turns out it's just friction based. You push it down, and it drops like that. So cheaped out on that one. But this probably was a really low price point one. Nice that it's got some sort of doors on it and stuff. It's got some articulation right here. But it's a cheap, low price point budget toy that has quite a bit of playability built into it. Next up we have the ECTO 500, which comes with its own ghost, and this is a pretty cool vehicle. So this one is a lot of fun, sort of. It does a few different things, and I'm going to go over the features with it, but let's just look at it. It looks like a cool little rod racer car, hot rod thing. It's got a tampograph right here of the Ghostbuster symbol. As you can see, a steering wheel in there, and it's got a sticker, and it's got the exhaust, and it's just pretty mean. A gas cap right here. And so when you roll it, two things happen. I don't know if you're seeing it on the screen, but the rear wheels will move this antenna that people like to say is always missing, but I see it on most of them out there. Then front wheels move the engine. And the hard part about this, and I'm going to pull one of these out, is getting this intact. This is the cheap little dollar store, which back then was quarter store type of plastic, that you can go find these like 6 for $1 or something at Walmart or Target or something like that, or maybe it's 6 for $3, I don't know, in the party section. And so they're really cheap made. This has like a hole in it for you to capture the ghost and then drag them off or something. So that's kind of cool. It's kind of interesting that it's just a cool looking vehicle, and I really liked it. It's one of the few that I actually went after because I was like, oh, I see that, that's cool. And they're not very expensive. You can get a complete one for like $30, just depending on the time, day, week, month. But for the most part, I mean, you can get them for under $10 shipped, missing a few things. So maybe you want to buy 2 or 3 of them, piece together one still for under $30. Next up, we have the Highway Hunter. My buddy is super into VW bugs, so any toy that has a VW bug, he picks it up and puts it in his display. So I've known about this for a long time, but he doesn't mess with it, and of course he didn't show anything about it. So when I got one, it didn't work right, so I had to watch videos to see what it's supposed to do, take it apart and fix it. So this one has got quite a bit of history behind it, because I did fix it and repair it and all of that. It looks pretty good. I almost was able to eliminate this gap in the hood. I see the gap in the hood on almost all of them. Couldn't quite eliminate that in my restoration of this guy, but it's a lot of fun because he's basically a transformer. He does seat 2 characters, and I had 2 in there, but I pulled one out because I needed to show it with one of the other lines of figures. And Getting into this, it does have a working trunk and does sort of have a working hood. Now in here we have the engine. The engine is removable and it comes out and it's a ghost. Woo! But I'm gonna put it back in there. I don't want to lose it. And oddly enough, again, this is a cheap toy line to collect. That's what makes it fun and easy. If you lose this, you can just go get another one for like 10 bucks. It's no big deal. Now getting it back in place, that's the big deal. It does say the Haunter on there for the license plate. Now let's get into the grand gimmick. You push one, both, either or both, and boom. This is the transformation. We will have to adjust the camera. Do not adjust your television. I will adjust it. Here is the kind of a praying mantis looking thing ghost that comes out of this VW. It's really a kind of a fun toy, and one of the problems I had was that the rear wasn't popping down and the head wasn't popping up during this guy, but resetting it, you have to reset the back wheels, which is fiddly and all of that, and Highway Hunter. Okay, next we're going to get into the flagship vehicle, the ECTO 1. Comes with this little ghost here, which is kind of cool. This is the vintage one, and I have to say that I never really was impressed with this vehicle as a kid, and even as an adult collector, I like the fact that it looks so good, but it still has a lot of drawbacks. The seat up top is ridiculous. It makes no sense, but I guess if Kenner felt like they had to put some sort of a play feature into it, it's right there. I don't see the point of why it needs a seat up top here, and at least the new one they made for the newest Afterlife movie makes some sense because they used it like that in the movie. Nobody used it like this in the movie or even in the cartoon that I know of. And so I got an extra seat here. Getting down here, this is the inside. What we have here is this and the claw. So what the whole point is, it includes a ghost. You can grab the ghost, and then what you do is you move the exhaust over, so push it down, slide it over, and you engage the mechanism that pulls this. So as you roll the wheels, it pulls it. Let's see that in action. That's what it does. If you're choosing between a original vintage one or a Hasbro remake, I would say, unless you already have a really nice condition vintage one, I would go with the Hasbro remake. It looks so much better. It feels so much better having a brand new one. Even though this one's in pretty decent shape, this one here, the new one, looks so much brighter and better, and it just feels nicer to have it new. You cannot really swap parts with it, and that's what I thought you could do. For whatever reason, they engineered these to be different enough that you cannot swap parts. But everything about the new one just feels better than my vintage one. Now for the massively iconic Firehouse. Before we get into looking at this playset real quick, I do want to dispel the myth that this is not a recolored version of the Precinct from Police Academy. That's a rumor that's out there, so let me prove it. Okay, I want to quickly dispel any and all myths about these two playsets being the same. The Ghostbuster Firehouse and the Police Academy Precinct. They're both made by Kenner. They both look very similar in style, but they are way different in proportion. They probably both have the same amount of plastic in them, but as you can see, the Precinct is way, way shorter. When you get to look at something as simple as the front doors being way bigger right here, obviously for the ECTO 1, but the front doors look similar, like a similar style to it, but they're blue, but they're different. And if you also look at the figures are shorter here. This playset is shorter. The playsets don't even open up on the same side. This is the left side. If you're looking at the front, this is the left side where it opens up. This one opens up on the right side. This is much longer. It's much deeper. So way different playsets, but they do look like they could be two buildings on the same street, which I think is really cool, really cohesive from Kenner. It is really hard to get this thing in frame because it's just tall and skinny. Tall, lanky building. Now it's kind of fun. And you know, the thing is that you could probably get a bunch of these and put them together and make like a city block and that kind of stuff. Or you could just display a bunch of figures in it. I am actually going to display figures in 2 of these because I got a shell and then I've got this one. And so with that, side by side, I think it'll look fantastic. Now, the first feature, well, it does have the iconic Ghostbusters sign up here, which is great. Sometimes it's missing. And there's every single part on this can be reproduced now. Well, all the parts that show up missing for the most part, like the doors, the sign, and all this kind of stuff. So that's good. But originals are usually still the best. One thing that I think is strange is that, well, maybe it's not strange, but I would think they would have made to where they would have one door and it could have been used on both sides. But then again, that's just me. And so with that, you have the main door, which you can see inside and all that kind of stuff. You do have these windows up here. You can see inside. So if you wanted to put some figures in there, you could see what's going on inside your display, which is kind of great. I don't have any set up in there because I'm going to be moving this around as we go. Here on this lower level, we have the garage where you can park your ECTO-1. The ECTO-1 doesn't really fit, but you can make it work. And basically, however you're displaying it, you can make it work. Really, the ECTO-1 is oversized for this, and in some cases undersized for the toys, because it doesn't really have a back seat. It forgoes the back seat for a play feature, or whatever you want to call that. So, looking at this, you also have the containment unit, containment chamber. So, for the sake of just looking at this, let's kind of move this out of the way here, and we're going to look at, we have the stickers that are in there, and you can kind of see what's going on in there. So just kind of looks like we got a computer panel and all this kind of stuff, and the maintenance, and then there's a lot of detail that is in the bottom floor and all of that kind of stuff, and the pole connects into here, all that great stuff. Now this is not a pole, this is just a mount. It's just to make it look like a beam or something holding up the building, and it's pretty cool. It holds together, and usually this is never missing. It's usually just a big giant chunk of everything but the pole, the blue pole where they slide down, that's usually missing. But let's go ahead and see what we can do with this containment chamber. It's a strange little gimmick that you have where you have this small containment unit which you slide open, you put in one of the ghosts, comes with a figure or whatever, and just slide it in there, and then you come over here. Now you place it on top like so. Now you have the back piece over that lump, and then you have this over the door. When you open this, slide this over, it opens the door and drops in your ghost at the same time. And then this is empty. It's like a magic trick. And then there's a ghost in there. So to get the ghost out, you open it up and get it out like that. I guess that's how kids play with it. I don't know. How do kids play with this stuff? Also, it looks like you could put in a trap right here, so that's kind of cool too. But that's the side with, yeah, that was the side you would show, and you would probably place this somewhere on the lower level, or you could place it on the upper level. Probably, those are the 2 best places to put it. A lot of people probably display it outside of the Firehouse. So getting up here to the second level, you can kind of see that we have like a bookshelf right here, and you also have a shelf that you can put stuff on, and that's a whole lot of fun, and bumping it is not fun. You can also have a figure like looking out the window and saying, oh no, there's some ghosts coming, or oh no, what's coming around the corner there. Over here there's a bookshelf, another bookshelf sticker, and all this kind of stuff. Now, I've seen people put in real types of furniture and stuff. There's just not that much in here, and I'm literally just going to line this up with figures all through it, and so that's how I'm going to do my display, or that's how I've been displaying it. Now get up here, we have just basically nothing. There's a picture of something, which is, the glare is getting it, picture of something right there, and some more of these railings. Now the railings, what I've seen, they're mostly always intact on these, but I'm missing a small one over here, so I'm not going to sweat it, but completists would probably be freaking out about not having that little railing. But we get to the main party trick, so I'm going to set that up and we can see how well we can get it to work. Okay, so there's a switch at the top, and when you flip it, it just kind of moves the entire bar, which releases this round piece. And then you put a figure on these pegs, and you flip this switch, and well, he's supposed to spin a little better now. Let's see if we can get a better spin on that. Attempt number 2. There we go. We got a better spin on it. So some people say you need 2 figures. Some people say one would not work, and I've seen one work. Or yours can just be all old and worn out like mine, and they just kind of fall straight down, which actually falling straight down is closer to realistic. But overall, this playset, it looks very iconic. It has a few display features. You can display a lot of stuff with it, so that's, I think, what Adult Collector wants. A few features for play features, but the big good thing about this, the big plus, is it's not going to set you back an arm and leg like a lot of other play sets from the 80s era. So I hope you enjoyed this look at the Kenner Real Ghostbusters toy line from back in the 80s. And I've got to say that they did a lot of really cool stuff, a lot of fun stuff, a lot of transformations, a lot of transforming, a lot of wacky things here and there. Now, some of the people don't like the gimmicks, and I actually tell you the truth, that's kind of what sucked me back into collecting this in a way. But what really did it were the Retro Series figures. But I have to admit, this was a fun toy line to collect, and it got me kind of excited to get a few other pieces that are a little bit more rare. Just dabbling with the cheap stuff. Now I'm getting into a little bit more expensive stuff, but I'm not going all the way. Anyway, I'm curious what you think. Are you in on this line? Have you collected any of this stuff, or is Ghostbusters a toy line that you've stayed away from? Were you scared away from it from the get-go? Let me know in the comments below. Like and subscribe. Dear Hanger out.
Beckman? Beckman! Beckman! What happened? Are you okay? He slimed me. That's great! Actual physical contact! You got slimed!
That's great, Ray. Save some for me.